welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm spending time on this podcast with super smart women. And the time that I get to spend with them, you'll get to hear their stories. You'll understand their motivations and gain some amazing insight about what truly makes a woman smart. Today I'm with Kathy Elrod. She's with Windmill Consulting, and she has extensive sales experience in a variety of industries, and she is focused on business development, sales management, and corporate strategies, all of which you can see on her LinkedIn profile. We're going to dive deeper. We're going to talk a little bit more because when Kathy says that she's a servant leader, that means something to her. She walks that walk. She talks that talk, and that's what we're going to talk about. Kathy, I'm really glad you're here. I have to preface this by saying that Kathy and I actually know each other really well. We've been friends for 5 years now, maybe a little over that, because I think it was at a New Year's Eve party at our church where you and I first bonded over a jigsaw puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
We put a jigsaw puzzle together.
I'm not a puzzle person, so that in itself.
That you actually sat down and focused on a puzzle with me. But we bonded over that. Over the next few years, you actually came to work with me at the software company and led my sales organization and did a phenomenal job. And we've just gotten to know each other really well. So, but I don't want to tell your story. So for those that are watching and listening to us today, tell our audience a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I will do that in a pretty concise manner, but I'll share just a few little, I would say, nuggets that I feel might be interesting to your audience. So I have been in sales now over 20 years, which is just wild to think about. And in that time, that's been across multiple industries. So started in something as simple as retail. Obviously, when I was very young, that moved into outside sales. That then moved into business development and into the construction industry. And from there into technology. And now I work across different companies in a lot of different industries, oil and gas, manufacturing, to go in and to really focus on the sales department. And what's interesting to me is a company has a lot of departments. The goal is to have those all work together. But sales is the tip of the spear. So if sales is not driving forward with great structure, with great energy, with great key people, if sales leaders aren't in there present, if there's not good processes, if there's not good strategy, if there's not KPIs, there's not clear goals and objectives, then sales will fall flat, which in turn will mean the company will fall flat. It will either plateau or decline. And so sales is something that it really, as far as when someone says, and I'll just, since we're talking about servant leadership, we're going to talk about church and my experience there. But there was actually a mother that came to pick up her little guy, and he had a little trouble in class. So he was hanging out with me. And the cool thing about this little bugger is I gave him a task, and I had a candy jar, and he wanted to organize it. And it was so fun that this rambunctious little guy that didn't quite fit in a classroom setting was just a gem. He was a gem. And so anyway, but man, he was selling me, and he was, can I pick one and take one for later? And he just had angles that he was working Miss Kathy on how to get some candy in his pocket through this organization. And so I when his mom came to pick him up, I said, man, he's going to be a little salesman. She goes, well, I hope he does something. The path that I have for him is much higher than that. And I was like, awesome, and so I guess what I'm saying in that is sales can sometimes, people have a perspective about sales, and some might be quite high and some might be mid-level and some might be low. But sales is truly that engine that drives a business. And that is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about driving businesses forward. And I've been doing that for over 20 years.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Servant leadership means different things to different people. It's almost become this buzzword that people use. But it means more to you. So talk to me about what servant leadership means to you.
I'll speak to it first from a business setting, and servant leadership is actually doing the work. It's not telling, it's doing to me. So I'll even give an example. There was an organization a company, a business that I was working in, and I was building a sales team. I was building sales processes. So I was instructing, coaching, directing traffic, but they were going through a period where they were trying some new sales strategies and processes. I was asking new staff to actually, walk those strategies and processes out. And I sat back and said, okay, I believe these are great processes and strategies, but I want to test them. Like, why am I asking these people to test them, without me actually doing a true test? And so I made it fun. Like, sales in every organization needs to have some friendly competition. And so we did that. We created a competition. And so I sold right beside my team, shoulder to shoulder. Now there's another individual in that team that might possibly be a little more competitive than me. So that's highly competitive because I'm pretty competitive. And we had individual goals is what I set. So I harnessed that, but then we had a team goal and there was a reward for each. And so the cool thing was we met the team goal. I actually met my individual goal. There were some that did, some that didn't, but the team goal was met. And obviously with the team goal, that obviously affected the team and the company. So with that benchmark that we met, man, the company was able to be at a really good spot for this week that we were wrapping up. So anyway, that gentleman called me on a Saturday, which normally I don't try to work on the weekends, but I took his call. And he said, and he's not much of a big talker, which is also odd for someone in sales, but he wasn't. He's very direct. And he said, I just needed to call you and tell you how much it meant to me for you to help us pull out that goal. And the fact that we won that competition as a team, and it was you that made the last sale that made that happen. And I had to grit it out. I had to really work pretty late Friday evening to make that week wrap up the way we wanted to. And I worked longer. Again, that was a private victory. I didn't make that public, but we can all see each other working. And I was just shocked at how much that meant to him. He was almost on the verge of being emotional, but he said, that's true servant leadership. And it just really, that will always stick with me, because to me, it was just, we got to do the work, right? Like, whatever I'm asking these people beside me to do, I need to do it as well. And I was happy to, but it makes great impact, not only on yourself, but those around you. And you don't even realize that impact. So true servant leadership to me is doing the work shoulder to shoulder, and you build trust in that team that you're working beside and you're leading.
And one thing I didn't hear you talk about in all this, because I know how competitive you are, you didn't talk about, that you won or that he won, because it wasn't about that. And I think that's another key component of servant leadership that I'm hearing you talk about, is that, and we talk about it from Covey's book about, the win-win.
Yes.
And what's the best solution is going to be one where both people, be it client, salesperson, team member, organization, servant, that everybody feels like a winner in that solution. So I appreciate those things about you. So what are some of the areas that you're serving in now? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, I continue, just like that business that I was working in, I'm doing that across other companies. And so I am doing that, and I would say displaying that servant leadership in multiple sales teams, just like that. I also, for the past, it's coming on 4 years now, have been working and serving in the youth program at Stonewater Church in Granbury, Texas. And oh my goodness, that has been one of the neatest experiences I have had so far in my life. And it was something where when I started that journey, I felt I had nothing to give and I only wanted to gain. But what I have been able to give and gain in that role of serving in the youth program and grow in that role has been just unbelievable. And from early on, I went to church camp. Like we all can think of a band camp or a church camp story. And I have so many great church camp memories. And even early on, when I was very young, I was like, man, if I ever get the opportunity to serve in this type of environment and with youth, I will do it. And so when that was laid at my feet, essentially, about 4 years ago, I was like, I don't think I can give anything. I don't think this is right. But I made a promise to myself, if this opportunity presented itself, and it sure did one Sunday morning, that I would act on it. So I kind of just blindly acted on that. And so I started with just being a small group leader, serving 3rd and 4th grade girls and teaching them. And from there, I have grown to now being a leader in that service and teaching large groups. So that looks like, 150 kids squirming around. And it has been fun to try to do a little bit better each week and do a little bit better to connect with them and serve them well and serve the church well and the group that I work alongside well.
A couple of things I want to pull out from what you said because I always want to make sure that people in the audience are getting nuggets from this. Is
Sure.
That one, it started with an ask. Somebody asked you. You didn't feel equipped. You didn't feel
No.
that it's like, there's got to be somebody better than me.
Oh yeah.
For this.
Yeah.
But I've always liked it when I've heard it said that God doesn't call the equipped; He equips the called.
This is very true.
You were called. God put your name into somebody's ear, and they asked, and you responded to that and said, "If I'm being asked, maybe this is something I'm supposed to do." And you stepped out in faith, and stepped in. This is also time outside of 8 to 5. This is a choice that people have to make when you're choosing to serve in an area where you're not getting paid dollars. And I want to clarify this: you're not getting paid dollars. You're getting paid a lot, because there's things that are a lot more valuable than money. You talked about those experiences from church camp growing up. I'm sure either there or in other areas of your life, there have been mentors, there have been people who have been smart, who have, served, mentored, applauded, reflected, or taught you along the way. Tell me about somebody in your life that comes to mind.
So I'm gonna give y'all a fun fact. I was able to go through these list of questions that Karen provided for this podcast because she is so organized and this is so well thought out. That being said, this is not a setup, because in thinking about my mentors, and I've had many amazing ones, but if I can think about my best woman mentor, it's you. And for whatever reason, I have never had a standout female mentor in my life until I met you. And so
I'm going to get myself back under control. I mean, that means a lot to me for you to say
so
that.
I'll speak why. Because we all have great relationships and connections in life and in business. But a mentor is someone that literally can challenge, support, champion, applaud, stretch, and grow. Because I'll go back to always these kind of sports and coaching type of stories. But you have put me in uncomfortable situations, and you have taught me how to get very comfortable in uncomfortable situations. So a true mentor grows that person and just leads them forward, again, supporting, applauding, and championing them. So a true mentor, in my opinion, has gone down a path, and every path is different. We've talked about this. Nobody knows the path that you're on unless they've been in your shoes, and that's just not possible. But that being said, a true mentor has gone down a path, and there's enough parallels and knowledge, deep knowledge, that they are willing to share unselfishly. And that, I just think, is so important. And you've done that. You have seen things in me that I did not see. You have put me in uncomfortable situations, and I have rose to the occasion. And I think it's fantastic that you are now sharing that mentorship with this audience.
Super smart women have a gift for serving or for mentoring, applauding, reflecting, teaching others that they often don't have the outlet to. How do I share that story? How do I help another woman? How can I be that mentor? And so that's a big part of what this is all about. And so I'm glad to be that, and glad that I have been and will continue to be that mentor for you. But
see, I couldn't have told you that, or our audience would have thought it was a setup or something.
No, yes, but that is, a lot of that goes both ways, because I think that's an important thing to recognize about a mentoring relationship is you're going to get out of something as much as you put into it, and there's always, like, just with the youth group that you put in, like, you thought you were going to get something. Sometimes people go into situations because I feel like I have a lot to give. I'm going to give in this situation. And then you realize, wait a minute, I've gotten just as much out of this as I've put in, maybe more.
That being said, I think so many people want to calculate what it's going to be and what they're going to gain and what they're going to give. And really, you can't. Like, you can't calculate that. And so that's, if we go back to your right, someone, I showed interest, someone gave, there was definitely an ask put on me. I didn't feel equipped. I think human nature is just to stop there, just say, oh, I'll come back to that. Because again, you can't run that calculation, right, of that return on investment of your time and what it's going to be like, right? And we do that. I think it's one flaw that we have, human nature. But if you can just be disciplined and take the next step, and then the next step, and then all of a sudden, here I'm talking about being 4 years in, and just the blessings and the bounty are just massive.
Serving, especially teaching, especially and mentoring, what you pour in to somebody, what you get back is priceless.
And I guess I'm making that bold statement to the audience because for many, 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 many years, I wasn't disciplined. I would have an idea or want to serve here or want to put some time there, and then I would just kind of set it aside because I felt there was priorities that were greater.
We were actually in a session this morning, a networking event, and one of the women there,
so I was like,
told your story, and you introduce yourself, and she looks at you and goes, I want to be you when I grow up. And I'm like, that's what it's about, though. It's about walking the walk, talking the talk, and serving and mentoring others to help them be at least a part of who you are when you grow up.
And that was a huge compliment. That just surprised me immediately.
It didn't surprise me.
Well, it surprised me, but it was so sweet. But again, that's why we do what we do, because if we can help each woman be her authentic self,
right,
and grow her skill sets and grow her authenticity, then all of a sudden she's a light that she doesn't even see, but others do.
Right.
And that's the whole goal, right? I'll never forget, there was someone early on in my sales career, and I'm going to tell him myself here a little bit, but he said, Kathy, man, you can really sell, but you are so full of BS. I don't even know how to take you. And I was like, it's that constructive criticism that really is like, and I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I believe that probably the 80% of the people you talk to, you just smooth them right into the sale and you move them on along. But he goes, do you have a deep, deep knowledge and understanding of what you're selling? Kind of. And so he caught me early on in my career going, listen, Kathy, you've got the tools and some gifting. You're personable. You can relate well with people. You build quick trust. But you've got to get into the technical side of sales. And so it was a pivot point for me. And again, this is where I've learned to welcome constructive criticism. Like, man, I come out of a meeting, I'll go to my peer and go, what could I have done different?
Don't be afraid to listen to constructive criticism.
Oh, you have to.
Even when it doesn't come constructively.
Yeah.
Even when
it's like, it smacks you in the face.
It's abrasive. It makes me think, there was actually a good friend and we were on a cruise and we were in an elevator And I immediately got on the elevator, and a stranger was on there, and he was closer to the buttons. And I looked at him and said, "Can you push 4, please?" And my friend that was on there said, "Please." What you don't know about my friend is that she actually genuinely is appreciative of you doing that. She just didn't vocalize that. And my first, like that hit me in the face was she did not just say that in front of this person that I don't know. And then the next thought was, and she's right.
You're right, exactly.
And I was when the gentleman got off the elevator, I went, I do that, don't I? She goes, all the time, but I know your heart. And I'm like, I'm gonna really have to work on my please and thank yous, and for people to see my heart and my genuine appreciation, and to hear it, and not just the tactical mind that I have that goes,
boom, boom, boom.
This is the quickest way to get something done, and this is what we're going to do. So yeah, and sometimes that kind of criticism comes in the most unexpected ways and from unexpected people. But be willing to listen to that. So I heard that. And also in what you're saying.
Absolutely.
We're going to sharpen the saw. We're going to polish the skill sets that we sometimes shy away from, and we're going to be open to that constructive criticism.
Yeah.
So those are great tools. I guess the other advice question I would have is, because I always like to think about time travel. You know me and time travel movies and the sci-fi stuff, Mark, and I love those. But if you could go back, time machine, I just put you in a time machine and you went back to your 13-year-old self, what advice would you give a younger you?
There's a lot of things, but just something that I would say, and I think it goes back to just, I'm competitive, I'm driven. I really, for many years, looked to obtain perfection, and that's so not realistic. And you actually were one of the people. It's like, Kathy, you can have a day. Like, give yourself some grace. Like, if you're working at this level, like, no, it's okay to just take a day, have a day. And so I think grace is something that I have naturally given to others. I give more grace now than I feel like I have in the past. But I have never been one to give myself any grace, ever. And so I would just actually speak that into my younger self and go, listen, you're going to have some days, and that's okay. I would tell my younger self to just give myself some grace.
I've seen that in you, and I've seen just in the years that we've known each other, how much grace you didn't give yourself, and where you've grown in that, just in the 5 years that we've known each other. Mm-hmm. Okay, so on to my resource questions, and we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
What's one of your favorite books that you've read, and why?
Yeah, so 7 Habits. I went through, I would say, kind of a pivot in my life where literally that and my Bible, they both sat beside my bed. So the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is just, man, my go-to. I'll still re-listen to it on Audible when I'm traveling and driving. So that being said, the Go-Giver series. So the Go-Giver Sell More. There's a Go-Giver Leadership. I know Bob.
I'll make sure to put it in the link to both of these books in the.
But Bob Berg he's fantastic. I know him just from networking and meeting him virtually and that type of thing. Those are just fantastic books. I would, again, it talks about just a lot of foundational things and, elements of, success. And it's just such a great way of looking at, I would say, giving, servant leadership, receiving as well. It's a great, great series that I continue to lean on. So
I've actually read both of those and refer back to the nuggets out of both of those. Mm-hmm. In closing, last question. What is one thing that you would want a future super smart woman, to walk away with? We've talked a lot of nuggets, but the last, your younger self, but if you were mentoring another young woman in her career path, her servant leadership path, what would you want to leave her with today?
I would say, I think a lot of women, and I would say younger women, some are just laser focused. They know what they want to do. They know where they want to serve. That's awesome. Like that will, hone in on that, dig into it, and move forward. But there's a lot of people, I've even talked to you about this, like you have so many talents and abilities, right? What's the one thing you want to take a hold of and move forward? Like we've talked about that many years back now, right? I've had those conversations with people in my family. And so I would say take the time, like don't feel rushed to figure out what your thing is, right? Like take some time to develop some mentors, right? Reach out to some people and get to know some of the things that you're interested in, some of the places you might want to serve. Like you don't have to do it all, but you do need to do something, right? So like pick a path, test it, do some A/B testing. Go with your gut and find a community or a support system that can come in around you and you can continue to move forward. So just figure out a way to grab traction.
I like that you said it's okay to not be laser focused.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great for those that are.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. But it's okay not to be laser focused. But give yourself permission to ask somebody that you admire if they would mentor you. I think one of the greatest and most flattering things a young woman can do is to say, will you mentor me? Will you come alongside me and help me with direction, with purpose, with understanding? And that's what we're supposed to be here at Super Smart Women, is that we're supposed to actually mentor other young women. So if you're a super smart woman and you're listening to this, look for those young women that you can mentor in your lives. If you're a young woman who is needing some of that guidance, direction, reach out to someone in your network that you admire. And if you can say, I want to be just like her when I grow up, then reach out to that Kathy and say, will you spend some time with me? Because my intuition says that if you're admiring her for qualities and characteristics that she embodies, she's probably going to be overwhelmingly flattered that you would ask for her to mentor you in that path. And that's what we need to do as super smart women, is give and get, not be unwilling to help others and not being unwilling to ask for help when we need it. So I'll wrap us up. Kathy, thank you so much for joining me. Obviously bringing a couple of tears to my eyes. I can't thank you enough for joining me today. I can't thank you enough for listening and or watching and joining us here. I hope it's benefited you as much as it's benefited us to get the chance to sit down and share. For all of the super smart women out there, stay strong, stay savvy, and stay smart. Thanks for being here with us today.